Abby. Tonight's story is Shadow Play. Dark clouds were playing tag in the night sky, high above the silent 100-acre woods. As they wheeled and rushed across the face of the full moon, their shadows danced along the forest floor below and scurried through the trees in their own game of hide-and-seek. At Kanga's house, the shadows appeared to be creeping along the outside walls and peeking curiously into Rue's bedroom window. Rue sat motionless on his bed, the covers pulled up so far that all that could be seen were his ears and wide-awake eyes. He was watching the restless shadows on the wall as they played tricks with what little light there was. "Mama?" squeaked Rue, barely able to push the word through his throat. At the sound of his voice, the shadows stopped moving and hovered expectantly. "Mama?" Rue repeated a bit more loudly. This time, "May I have a drink of water, please?" "Coming, Rue dear," answered Kanga. As the shadows heard Kanga hopping down the hallway toward Rue's room, they instantly darted out of sight, hiding behind curtains, inside carelessly left open dresser drawers, and under the bed. When Kanga opened the door, holding a candle and a cup of cold water, there was nothing moving but Rue, who was climbing out cautiously from beneath his cozy barricade of bedclothes. "Is everything all right, Rue?" asked Kanga gently, as she handed her son the cup of water. "Oh, sure," replied Rue as casually as he could. "I'm just a little thirsty." "Very thirsty, I would say," Kanga chuckled quietly as she watched Rue drink. "This is the third time tonight you've asked for water." It's all that yawning," Rue answered, thinking quickly. Immediately he pretended to yawn, the very biggest yawn he'd ever yawned. It stretched ever so much wider than the polite paw he raised to cover his mouth. "See, Mother?" he said when he finally managed to get his mouth closed. "Wouldn't that make you thirsty?" "Absolutely," said Kanga. Accepting the empty cup Rue held out to her, Kanga added, almost as an afterthought, "When I was a very small girl, it was the dark that made me thirsty. I must have asked my mother for a glass of water 100 times, when all I really wanted was a light. But I thought I was too old to need one anymore." Rue grinned, and his black eyes sparkled because he knew Kanga was about as well as any child could know his mother. "Nice try, Mama. But you said I was big enough to sleep without a nightlight." "No," Kanga reminded him. "You said you were big enough. I said we'll see, dear." "Does that mean you don't think I'm big enough?" Rue asked, disappointed. Kanga sat down on the bed next to Rue and put her arms around his shoulders. "Oh no, Rue. That's not what I think at all." Rue looked up at Kanga gratefully. "You don't?" "Of course not," she said, giving him a squeeze. "I was simply wondering whether the shadows have come to visit you yet." "Shadows?" Rue repeated. "What shadows?" "Oh," Kanga replied, "they're very frightening, but only until you get to know them. Have you seen any?" "Well, maybe. What do they look like?" asked Rue. "You'd know them if you saw them," Kanga said. "There's one that bounces through the window and makes the curtains flutter, especially when there's a full moon like tonight. And another one that likes to hide in the closet and make the clothes sway and shake like someone's in them. And the one that hides under the bed and rolls around on the floor and creaks and moans. So have you seen them?" "Uh-huh," admitted Rue. But what do you mean they're only frightening until you get to know them? Ah, when you find out why they're here, it makes the time so much more pleasant. Why are they here? Rue wanted to know. Well, you know when you sometimes find something in the pocket of an old jacket that you thought you had lost long ago? Sure, that's always a nice surprise, Rue smiled. That's the shadow in the closet, explained Kanga. It comes across something that's been lost or forgotten and brings it back to where it will be found. Wow, gasped Rue. And the shadow that flutters the curtains wants to make sure that no one misses how beautiful the 100-Acre Wood looks in the moonlight, Kanga continued. What about the one under the bed? Whispered Rue, not wanting to draw the shadow's attention until he was absolutely sure it was safe to do so. It has to do with the floor under the bed, Kanga whispered. It seems floors under beds get very little attention. No one scuffs them or tracks mud on them or even spills anything on them. They get very lonely as well as very dusty. So the shadow cheers them up? Guessed Rue. Yes, Kanga nodded, and it's very much like scratching a cat between the ears. Those creaks and groans are a floor's way of purring. That's neat, shouted Rue, jumping up and down on the bed. And there are many other shadows that I don't really know anything about, but knowing the few I do to be so friendly, I'm sure they're all just as helpful and courteous, aren't you? Sure, Rue answered at the top of his voice. Then he continued more quietly. Mama, you can go back to bed now. I don't think I'll be thirsty any more tonight. All right, dear, said Kanga. She kissed Rue on the forehead. Good night. Mama, said Rue as Kanga opened his door. Yes, dear. Anytime you want, you can leave the light in your room and come watch the shadows with me. Why, thank you, Rue, said Kanga. I may very well do that some day. She smiled in the darkness. Some day, very soon. Good night, Mama. Good night, Rue, dear. Sleep well. The end. I hope you enjoyed your story. I love you, baby girl, so very much. I can't wait to see you this weekend. I love you, Johnny. Always, no matter what. You two are all I think about. Sweet dreams. And give each other big hugs and kisses for me. I love you.